Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the second episode of the new interview series for the International Society for Frontotemporal Dementia. My name is Indira, and I'm a volunteer for the society. And today it is a great pleasure for us to introduce Dr. Agustin Ibañez. He's a visiting professor at the Trinity College Dublin and director of the Latin American Brain Health Institute at the Adolfo Ibáñez University. He's also a senior attentive fellow from the Global Brain Health Institute at the University of California, San Francisco, and an independent researcher at the National Scientific and Technical Research Council of Argentina. And Dr. Agustin Ibañez is one of the promoters of the networking and research initiative called the Latin America and the Caribbean Consortium on Dementia and the Multi-Partner Consortium to Expand Dementia Research in Latin America. So hello, Agustin. Thank you for this interview.
Hi, Indira. It's a great pleasure to me to talk with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So to start, could you please explain to us what is the main purpose of this initiative?
Yeah, well, let me move very long time ago in the 2015 when we met with different leaders in dementia in the region, and we realized that the region is sharing a lot of challenge and barriers. For instance, patients are not well and timely diagnosed. The health professionals don't receive a specific training, and there are so many limitations in the local centers that we realized that we can try to integrate efforts, because today there was no single effort coordinated from bottom up from Latin America. So we created the Latin American and Caribbean Consortium on Dementia that now have more than 250 leaders in the region, mainly clinical researchers, but other kind of researchers and also policymakers. And we're trying to provide a kind of overview. Then from the LAC-CD, we created the Multi-Partner Consortium to Expand Dementia Research in Latin America, or ReDLat, which is aimed to develop research, specific research, being able to compare the main two risks, genetic risk and environmental risk, like socioeconomic and social determinants of health, and how they differentially impact in US population versus Latin American population. And this is a project that is supported by the NIH, the National Institute of Aging, the Alzheimer's Association, the Rainwater Charitable Foundation, the Global Brain Health Institute, and the Electrophysiology.
Well, that's amazing. Congratulations for that. And what makes the Latin American population so vulnerable to dementia?
So it seems to be a very complex scenario, departing from genetics, environmental, health system, and population growing. At genetics, we have a huge admixture of native African and European origins that create a strong underrepresentation. So we don't know the genetics of Latin America. We are extremely underrepresented. In polygenic risk score research, for instance, less than 3% of this research has included Latino or indigenous population, for instance. So we have a lot of variability in genetics that is not very well understood, and we have really large families with genetic presentation of different types of dementia, including AD, frontotemporal dementia, ataxia, CADASIL, and many other conditions. But at environmental factors, the great contributors to the disease, like socioeconomic status, social determinant of health, the typical Lancet Commission risk factors, including cardiovascular, pollution, stress, lifestyles, including alcohol, smoking, make it a huge impact. In fact, compared with other regions, Latin America, the risk in Latin America is playing more than 56% of the presentation of dementia in comparison with the 35-40 in the global numbers. But then the health system is also fragmented, it's very fragile. It was not ready or prepared before the pandemic, you can imagine right now. And there is no formal long-term care. Most of the caregivers are informal families, in fact, women, daughters and wives. There are no national dementia plans in most of the countries, with the exception of Chile, for instance, and a couple of countries with not enough budgets. And the last point is population growing. We have an accelerated growing of the population in the region, and in some countries like Chile, we have a specific growing of aging population. So all these factors make this region extremely vulnerable to dementia.
And could you tell us what is the current situation of frontotemporal dementia in Latin America?
Yes, so in a short answer, it's even worse than in comparison with Alzheimer's, because first of all, as you may know, just a few centers can make a good diagnosis, a timely diagnosis of dementia. Most of the patients are really under diagnosis, and most of them are confounded with psychiatric patients. We just published recently a paper showing that BBFTD patients are have a rate extremely larger than in other regions of misdiagnosis as psychiatric conditions. But then the situation of frontotemporal dementia regarding caregivers is even worse. We already shown that Latin America holds the largest burden for caregivers, but in frontotemporal dementia is even worse, because you know the behavioral problem that these patients impacts in the families, right? And there are some small steps. We are doing some kind of neurological training, clinical trainings on FTD, increasing the awareness of frontotemporal dementia, but we need to have more comprehensive and more support from public health systems.
And what might be the impact of this initiative? Meaning, how do you think this initiative is going to help dementia patients in Latin America?
Well, I think that what we want to do is to combine research with capacity building and implementation science. So from one side, we are aiming to improve the characterization for this patient, namely to create better history of this patient, being able to receive future treatment, pharmacological or non-pharmacological treatments. We also are aiming to improve the health professionals' capacity for making diagnosis. We are combining specific methods that are harmonized across the region, but we also have we published a regional action plan for dementia in the region, and we stress the relevance to use markers and biomarkers that can be affordable and scalable in the region. That is a really big problem in the region. So we hope that we can contribute to that, but also in educational proposals. We have created the Latin American Brain Health Institute, the first in the region, and we hope to create different educational initiatives to improve the diagnosis, care, and research on BBFTD and other frontotemporal conditions.
Good. And well, we would like to know more about you and your work. So you have just moved to Ireland. What brought you to Ireland, and how you will be continue working for Latin America?
Thank you for the question. So first of all, I have been working the last year with US, trying to increase the connections and the collaboration between US and Latin American countries, but we want to do the same with Europe. So the first goal is to increase the bridges between European researchers and clinicians and databases, and ReDLat and BrainLat also. We are working also with the Global Brain Health Institute in Trinity, and we want to develop a extended fellowship program. So BrainLat will provide the first fellowship in brain health for the region in a couple of years, and we are working with the GBHI at Trinity to adapt, the curriculum, because as you are coming from Argentina, so this idea of mentorship is quite different to one of the advisor or director of PhD or postdoc. So we need to create a culture for mentorship. We need to create a culture for leadership. We need to train in faculties, and we are working on that. And first, we want also to develop some cognitive neurotechnologies that have been developed in Europe, like Neureka, which is an app to follow to making like an everyday assessment of patients, and we want to bring Neureka to Latin America, and also to develop EEG markers, which are more affordable and scalable, with some collaborations at Trinity College and other regions in Europe.
Great. And the last question, what brought you to research frontotemporal dementia? And do you want to mention any mentor or important person in your life that has supported or inspired your interest in the field?
Thank you for these questions. Unfortunately, I didn't get a unique mentor in my early career. My first mentors were the high function and autistic patients. I was just, when I finished my degree, I was studying this patient. I was shocked about, how smart they can be regarding numbers or mathematics or a kind of specific memories, but the social world became so difficult for them. So I was just fascinated for that. And then I discovered the frontotemporal dementia. That is a kind of, model to study social interactions. I guess I have some social adaptation problems, and that should add in the list of factors impacting. But then my father got Lewy body dementia, and that was terrible for me and for my mom, from my family. We were not able to deal with that. And he was having a quite behavioral presentation, quite similar to BBFTD presentation, and that was really, really impacting in my career. And the last point is Bruce Miller. I think that he was my last and most important mentor, as Bruce was, helped me to understand how important is Latin America. He was the only one that trusted in this initiative, and when nobody believed that was important, he was believing that. So he pushed me, and he also helped me to create the Latin American Brain Health Institute, and of course, Victor Valcour, Ian Robertson, and Brian Lawler, who are all directors of the GBHI, were very influential in this initiative.
Okay, well, thank you, Agustin. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for your attention. We will see you in the next episode.
Thank you indeed, and congrats for your volunteering initiative.
Thank you.